Occupy our streets! 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 Occupy our streets!
The people want to bring down the regime. And what the candidate with those protesters was that the regime is far more than the figureheads. It's far more than the rubrics and the Ben Alis. It's the IMF. It's the multinational corporations that actually pillaging and leasing to the same corporations that are ripping the wealth of, the people of the United States. And we face that same regime here in Australia. There's many crises that we face, but just one of them is the climate crisis that this system is driving us into. We have government that is supporting the fossil fuel industry, which is destroying this planet, it's destroying the planet that we live on.
I'm down at Martin Place, Sydney, on the 15th of October 2011. Today we're seeing the beginning of the Occupy Australia movement outside the Reserve Bank here in Martin Place. Now this movement has suddenly sprung up in major capital cities across Australia, and of course it started in Wall Street in New York, spread to many major cities in the US. Today we're here to first of all investigate and find out what it's all about, what the people organising it actually want, what their demands are, and then we have a few questions that we want to put to some of the people here, particularly in relation to the carbon tax, which is a central critical issue for democracy in Australia, according to many people, and at least 90% of the population of Australia is opposed to the carbon tax, according to polling techniques which we've been documenting on Truth News Radio Australia. And of course it is anti-democratic, and of course it does involve a banking scam. So one of our goals today is to find out what the people here think about the carbon tax, as well as everything else that they're here to talk about. It's Hereward Fenton reporting for Truth News Radio Australia. Okay, here is one example of one of the interest groups here today. Hot Earth, the case for planning and regulation to deal with the climate crisis. Now, as we know, and as Truth News Australia listeners know, the climate change industry is a scam, the climate change policies are a scam, and the carbon tax is a scam. So already seeing warning signs that this group is infiltrated by elements that are not genuine. So we'll see what else we've got. Citizens Electoral Council. Now that's the Lyndon LaRouche organisation, which actually does a lot of good work. I wouldn't say I agree 100% with what they do or what they say, but I think they are actually in many cases on the right track, and they do tend to appear at many of these types of events, and they have been at most of the carbon tax protests that I've been to. This one here, of course, this is a communist publication, so as we would expect, there is a strong presence here of socialist and communist groups, which indeed, many of them are probably very well-meaning people, but again, there is the possibility that will direct this movement into a very orchestrated agenda, which is not certainly progressive from my point of view in terms of resolving the issues that face us financially and with our democracies, because socialist and communist solutions tend to be top-down, totalitarian in nature. Hi, we're just from a grassroots podcast show called Truth News Australia. Can you just give us an idea of why you're here today and what it's all about? Just your idea of it.
Go on then.
Me? I'm here to support a positive change in the community as far as the oppressive regime that banks are giving us at the moment, and the loose change that they offer us, and in return for our enslavement to the system. So I think that's partially why I'm here, to support all these people here and for a positive change in the way that we exist in society.
Any specific demands? Are there any specific things you're asking for?
True democracy.
Can I just ask you one question that we're asking everyone today? What do you think about the carbon tax that was passed through Parliament earlier this week? Apparently up to 80% of the people in the population are against it, and they feel that it is in some ways a bit of a banking scam in itself. What do you think about that?
I think it's misdirected. The idea is constructive, but it definitely doesn't go far enough.
And how far would you like to go, and what would you like to see done?
I'd like to see it being used on the actual companies that are profiting from the destruction of the globe.
Okay, so you're in favour of taxation?
To the rich, yes, definitely.
Okay, so what about the situation where the taxation as it affects people who are less than, I guess, the super elite, but the people who are earning more money than, say, the average low-paid workers? Because what tends to happen with taxation systems is that those people tend to actually get the brunt of it, and quite often the effect of heavy taxation and towards a collectivist socialist system is to actually create a kind of a situation where everyone is disempowered and where a super elite still controls the wealth. And that's why I've personally got a lot of questions about whether taxation and more government is the solution. And what I understand about a lot of the Occupy Wall Street movement was actually looking at the way in which corporations and government have been working hand in hand. And there is a possibility, would you say, that the collaboration of government with corporations and banks and increasing taxes could actually just lead to more tyranny, not less?
No, I agree with you, man. This is why I'm here for, not to talk about the carbon tax issue, but actually to talk about changing the system. I'm totally in agreement with you. That's why I said it doesn't go far enough, but it's actually not a solution anyway. You know? The solution is to change the system.
Thanks a lot, mate. Cheers. Hi, I'm just here with a grassroots news channel called Truth News Radio Australia, internet-only broadcast, and just asking people today, just getting a general feel of why you're here and what do you think it's all about?
Well, for me, the worst question is that of climate change, because I've just got a grandson who's a year old, and I look at him and I think, my God, what's going to happen to him in 10 years' time? Because, you know, the climate is going to get worse. There's going to be massive droughts. There's going to be all thunderstorms and typhoons. There's going to be no food. I mean, and they won't do anything about it. Our governments just won't tackle the question. They know perfectly well what the problem is, but they're in hock to they've been bought off by the big coal companies. You can see how much, you know, they spent $22 million in getting rid of a Prime Minister. They'll do anything.
Can I just ask, just to clarify, so you are mainly here because of climate change?
And also the way capitalists, you know, the ruling class rules, because they, you know, the whole example of the Qantas CEO has just voted himself for a $5 million pay rise for this year, at $5 million a year. And then at the same time, he's fighting off the Qantas pilots who are asking for a reasonable wage increase. You know, we depend on those guys in the air to get us safely from one place to another. And what the hell? This is ridiculous.
Can I just ask a question, just back on the question of climate change and carbon taxes, because I do agree that recent polling has shown that up to 80% of the population was actually against the carbon tax, and that is actually an expression of what the people in our country feel about the imposition of a carbon tax. And let's just keep that aside at the moment from questions specifically about the climate change issues themselves. The carbon tax in itself has been massively unpopular. Would you agree with that, and what is your opinion on that?
Well, I don't know what the question was in which they polled that opinion, and you know, you have to look at how they put it to people, and also what percentage of the population did they ask? Was it 1% or 1,000 people or 200 people? I mean, you really got to look at all that to believe those polls, and I don't believe it. I think a lot of people are against it.
Would you agree that the Prime Minister of this country went to the previous election with a statement saying that there will be no carbon tax under a government I lead? Would you agree with that?
What, are you supporting no carbon tax?
I'm here to ask questions.
Okay, let's tackle this question properly.
Is that correct or incorrect?
The carbon tax will not solve the climate change question. They're attacking Julia Gillard from the wrong side and from the wrong reasons. We need more than that. We need solar panels. We need renewables now, right now. I don't believe in those denialists. You know, they're crazy, or else they're being paid for by the big coal companies. There's obvious, the scientific facts are obvious. There's going to be global warming of 5 degrees if we don't stop what we're doing now with the production of carbon dioxide with the massive coal extraction we are carrying out.
Well, given that we won't question that or address that specific right now, but the solution that's been proposed, which is government taxation, right, which puts carbon credits as a tradable commodity through the banking system. And given that this protest here has been largely sparked by corruption and dishonesty within the banking system itself, what is your position on the carbon tax and the trading of carbon credits as a proposed solution?
We have to do something. It's not going to solve the problem, but we have to do something. And I don't believe in Abbott and his solution. That's going to do absolutely nothing. We're going to fry in a couple of years. You have to tackle this question. It has to be done with renewables. I don't think Julia Gillard has gone far enough, and it's not going to work. But she's got to start something, and we have to start with the carbon tax. But I think we should tax the big polluters. It should be called a pollution tax, not a carbon tax. And it's the big polluters who aren't paying.
But when you say we, you mean the government. The government imposes a tax, and that tax is raised against everything, which of course causes the price of everything to go up.
There's a massive disinformation campaign against the government on this issue. Massive disinformation campaign. People aren't getting the facts of what's going to happen and what will happen. And so we have to tackle it in a different way. We have to educate people about what the problem is.
But would you agree that there has actually been reports from within the government and from within representatives of the government's policies that there is a massive fraud problem with the way in which carbon credits are going to be used within the economic system because it is so open to rorting and fraud?
Oh yeah, of course, I agree with that. There's going to be massive rorts and there's going to be massive problems.
So again, just getting back to the viability of that solution.
You should tax 1,000 of the big companies. Do you agree with that solution? It shouldn't be the people who pay. It should be the big polluters who are paying for
Well, no,
these
the problem is that it is very easy to rort the system with phony carbon credits. The bigger the company, the easier it is to do. The larger companies actually have much more resources to be able to manipulate the system to create artificial examples of how they've been green, for example.
It's going to be fraud on all that issue.
So again, getting back to the reason why this event is here and what Occupy Wall Street was about, how does that fit in with your agenda? It doesn't seem like it's actually really related.
Ordinary people have to start speaking out about the system and how it works, and it doesn't work at all. It doesn't work for us on climate change, it doesn't work for us on education, it doesn't work for us on health or hospital system.
Right.
All the money is just going into the big companies. And it's true, Gillard's going to hand over billions of dollars in tax-free credits to the big companies. I don't agree with that either.
So what would be the preferred solution?
Renewables now, 100% renewables now. Wind power and solar power. And that organisation called Beyond Zero has written out a blueprint on how that can be done with a minimum amount of expenses and taxes for the rest of the population. They've done it. They've done a blueprint. And our government won't tackle it because they're in the pocket of the big coal companies. This is all against the corporations. The corporations just rule the countries, and to the detriment of ordinary people.
The problem that a lot of people have with some of the proposed solutions that are from a socialist orientation is that they tend to involve more taxation, more government, more powerful government, and we already have a situation where government and corporations have become in a very tight relationship. And as you start getting solutions that actually involve a more collectivist approach that are still overseen by giant government bureaucracies, those who have a libertarian viewpoint, those who actually want true free market capitalism, see that as an absolute red flag of a path towards totalitarianism. And I think many of the Occupy Wall Street people are from that perspective, but there are also many who are from a collectivist socialist perspective, which I personally find very dangerous because I know where it can lead. I know what it can lead to.
Look, we're all going to have very, very different perspectives on that. I happen to sort of possibly veer towards what you're saying in so much as that it's not about creating a system, another system which is just sort of balanced left or right and favouritism. It's about getting through that. I mean, we've got democracy is the least worst option. We know that. But this is just creating a movement which is getting rid of the 0.1% or 1% that's actually having a direct influence and starting from there and then getting our voices heard. Your point of view, her point of view down the road there at least can be heard. We're not hearing any of that at the moment, are we? And there's dangers in both ways. We've got to be able to sit down and have a rational discussion about it without having, a great big fat cat and a group of fat cats with the snouts deep in the trough that are actually running it.